So the one moment that the defense had to test this witness in open court is gone. They can take his testimony, his pre-record from the prelim. If it takes it to trial, they will be able to. The defense wanted Twiggs live on the stand under oath in a chair where they could look at him in the eye and cross-examine him. And the judge said, no, you get a tape, a pre-recorded video recorded under conditions that the prosecution controls, with Twiggs answering in the defense's own words a series of leading questions, which means it's almost like you're telling them what to say while you're asking the question, allegedly. That's how I take it. A series of leading questions would be like they're leading you to the answer through the question. So the one moment that the defense had to test this witness in open court is gone. It has been taken off of the table this morning. Even if it's just prelim, they can take his testimony, his pre-record from the prelim. If it takes it to trial, they will be able to use that in the trial if Lance Twiggs ultimately disappears and he never shows up again. That is a very important distinction to understand why this is important in general. That's why people are up in arms about all of this, because at the end of the day, you don't need him again. You don't need Lance Twiggs again. So he's getting limited immunity, but he's getting immunity and he doesn't even have to testify and face his the accusers. You're not going to get to see this guy on the stand. That's crazy. Twiggs did not get full immunity. He got use immunity, a limited use immunity. And the gap between those two are a canyon, okay? And that canyon will tell you exactly how the state really feels about its own star witness. There are two kinds of immunity broadly. The big one is called transactional immunity. It's blanket immunity, complete total immunity. And that's the one where you are completely protected from the prosecution for anything connected to your testimony. Bulletproof. Transactional immunity is the blanket or the total kind of immunity where it completely protects a witness from future prosecution for crimes related to their testimony. Witness immunity from prosecution occurs when a prosecutor agrees to not prosecute a witness in exchange for testimony. So I would imagine getting immunity at all would mean there's an implication that Lance Twiggs is involved. Now, what is his level of involvement that we know of? All we know is, or that they've given us, or that we think we know, or whatever the shit is they're telling us, is he was involved because he received these text messages and the letter and he burned it and he's tampering with evidence, like removing an SD card or paving over a crime scene isn't that. But, you know, they've got him on immunity because he's involved somehow. Lance Twiggs did not get that one. He got the other one, which is use immunity. And here's what use immunity actually means. So just listen close. It means that the government will not use your own words against you. That's it. So, you know, that's all it covers. So when they say you have the right to remain silent, anything that you say and do will be used against you in the court of law when you're being Mirandized, that gets removed. So your Miranda review, whatever, is removed. So the immunity that Lance Twiggs has gotten means that it covers him so that they can't use it against him, essentially. Use immunity only prevents the government from using the witness's own statements against them and does not stop prosecution if independent evidence supports the charges. Now, it does not mean that they won't charge him. It means that they won't charge him using his own statement. If the state goes and finds other evidence, independent evidence on its own, Twiggs can still be prosecuted. So they did keep that door open on their own witness, and it gets sharper, I think, because once you take that immunity, you can no longer plead the fifth. So he's compelled to talk, but only protected with the thin version of immunity. They made him talk, and then they kept the leverage, is what it looks like. Use and derivative use immunity prevents the prosecution only from using the witness's own testimony or any evidence derived from the testimony against the witness. However, if the prosecutor acquires evidence substantiating that the crime independently of the witness's testimony, the witness may be prosecuted. Prosecutors at the state level may offer a witness either transactional or use and derivative use immunity, but at the federal level, use and derivative use immunity is much more common. I don't know. And I think I've got something here that will kind of break this story wide open. It did for me, and not a lot of people have been connecting, if any, is and this is what dropped just recently, is that the defense told the court on the record exactly what they wanted to cross-examine Twiggs about. They wanted to ask him about his limited immunity deal in general. They wanted to ask him about his motive to cooperate with investigators in general. Defense attorneys argued they should be allowed to cross-examine Twiggs in person, particularly about his limited immunity. So they wanted to ask him about his limited immunity agreement and the potential motives to cooperate with investigators. This is from LA Mag. This is crazy, bro. Tyler Robinson judge rejects major defense request, delays high stakes sanctions decision. The court ruled prosecutors may rely on hearsay evidence, block the defense from compelling Lance Twiggs to testify in person while leaving the sanctions fights unresolved. So in this, they, again, to tell you again, they want to ask him about this immunity deal. Defense attorneys literally said they should be allowed to cross-examine Twiggs in person. They should particularly be able to ask him about his limited immunity deal and agreement and what is the reason for that, to come forth with this information. What is the promise? What are they promising and why, right? Basically, like, what is your involvement here and what is the deal? Like, why are you getting this limited use immunity deal and what is it involving? That's it. Sit with that. The defense said, we want to put the key witness for the state on a stand and ask him in front of everybody, did your immunity deal shape your story? Did it? Did your immunity deal shape your story? Do you have a reason to say what the prosecutors want to hear? Are you in distress? Have they told you your X, Y, and Z? There's a lot of information that needs to be, unfolded. That's a pretty important thing, I would imagine, right? They want to ask about his motives to cooperate with investigators. What that needs to be, but Graff said no. Nope. Sorry. No person to show up here. Do you have a reason to say what the prosecutors want to hear? That is like super important. And that is the bombshell for me, that you can't deny that, right? I mean, you can, I guess, obviously you can, but I would say that I'm going to label this part because I have to. The next piece is labeled inference, right? My read, not fact. But ask yourself the question, when a prosecutor gives their most important witness only the thin type of immunity, limited use, keeps their leverage. Remember, the prosecutor keeps their leverage against Lance Twiggs and then fights tooth and nail to keep that witness from being questioned about the very deal in open court. What does that tell you? I can't read their minds. I won't pretend to. But here's what I can say. The state's own argument for hiding him from cross-examination is that the cross-examination might create inconsistencies. Their words. Go back to Judge Graff's ruling, competing credibility inferences. They are admitting on paper that the witness, that putting this witness under real questioning could shake up the story. And their solution was to make sure it never happens. That's not me saying it. That's the filing.